Hello and welcome. I'm Petra Mayer. I'm the CEO and founder of Petra Mayer and Associates Consulting. And today in my interview, I am here to introduce you to Athena Marousis. Now, Athena is the growth marketer at TalentCards. And TalentCards is the newest software of Epignosis Learning Technologies. And she will help us understand what TalentCards is, how she got to work for them, and why she's so excited about this product and the features. Welcome, Athena.
Hi, Petra. Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here with you.
Well, thank you for your time. And I am very excited about this particular interview because, as you know, I'm interviewing learning management systems, but I'm also interviewing specialty systems. I think you are one of those specialty systems. So, Athena, maybe share with us how you got to work for Epignosis and especially for TalentCards and why you're so excited about this product.
Yeah, so initially my background isn't specifically in marketing. In college, I actually studied English literature and economics, and then came to find out that marketing is a nice overlap of these two things where I get to use both of these skills in my day-to-day job, because marketing is both, and growth marketing is both understanding people, the psychology behind people, the way people think, how words persuade people, but it's also a lot of metrics and a lot of understanding what converts, what doesn't convert, how things perform in a very numeric sense. So that's a little bit about my background in terms of education. And I started at Epignosis 3 years ago. As you mentioned, of course, TalentCards is the newest software in Epignosis. And that really drew me in from the beginning when I first joined the company. So for the past year and a half, I've actually been dedicated on the TalentCards team. And I guess I was just drawn to it in general because the nature of the software, the market that it is directed at is a market that I relate more to. And that was kind of what pushed me to want to be on this team specifically.
Mm-hmm. So you're already going into kind of the market. And I think what you told me prior to me starting the interview, you've worked in an industry where you would have wished to have something like TalentCards. And so that must be quite exciting now to be able to promote a product to that kind of industry. Tell us more about that.
So one of the main reasons why I was really attracted to TalentCards specifically from the beginning is that TalentCards is actually geared at the end user, the employee that isn't desk bound, but actually is deskless. And I personally related to that when I first joined the company because, like a lot of people in college and before, I had waited tables and I had worked retail, and these people do the kind of jobs that we take for granted every day, and they don't necessarily get the job training and support that you get when you're in a formal office environment. And I definitely experienced that firsthand. And so when I found that TalentCards was actually geared and designed specifically to support deskless employees, I was like, this is what billions of people are missing in their day-to-day. And that mission just resonated with me much more and pushed me to want to be on the TalentCards team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're already bringing in some really important terms, the deskless employee. We also know TalentCards as a mobile first platform. So what does that actually mean? Mobile first, deskless employee. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So mobile first essentially means that the software was designed from day one to be used on a mobile device. So not a laptop computer or a desktop computer. And in the LMS world, the vast majority of LMSs were designed initially to be used on desktops and laptops. And then, of course, a lot of these systems do have mobile apps that go with the LMS. But what you'll find is that the content that you had in your LMS, your Word documents, your PDFs, and that sort of thing, which are, of course, designed to be used on a laptop, have just been shrunken down to fit on the phone. And this is not a mobile optimized experience. So mobile first means that from the beginning, the content and all of the features surrounding the platform are designed to be used on a mobile device, whether that's a smartphone or a tablet.
Mm-hmm. And then you were talking about the deskless employee. Okay, so we can understand there is a whole load of people who work in the day-to-day environment where they don't have access to a computer. Give us some examples of typical industries that should really look at talent cards.
Yeah, sure. So, aside from food and beverage and from retail, that I mentioned before that I can personally relate to, there are other industries that are absolutely vital to us that these employees need to be supported in their jobs. So we're talking nurses and doctors in the healthcare industry and first responders. We're talking construction workers. We're talking manufacturing employees, first responders, these kinds of people that we do often take for granted, in our day to day, and don't have access to the same kind of software and training material and training resources that office bound employees do have access to, simply because they do have access to a laptop all the time, and that's where they do most of their job.
I can certainly relate to that because I've worked in a lot of these industries. I've worked in the travel industry and in hotel and retail and the coffee shop, etc. Thinking back as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking like, how did I get my training at that time? Well, it certainly wasn't sitting in front of a computer, but it certainly wasn't in front of a mobile phone either. A lot of it was person-to-person training. These days, that's not really easily scalable. So I'm really curious to learn more about how we can think about a platform like TalentCards when you're looking at training your workforce that has these kind of situations where you can't bring them into, they don't have their own computer at all. They might not even have a computer at home to do their training. And it's hard to bring them to the same spot too, because they're a dispersed workforce. So let's look at that a little bit more. But before we go, maybe we could look at the learning management systems overall, and then look at specifically for mobile users. How do you define this market, and where does TalentCards fit in?
I would define the learning management system market as crowded. There are countless learning management systems out there. Companies build their own custom learning management systems, especially large organizations with hundreds of thousands of employees, and that sort of thing. And again, most of these LMSs do have a mobile app that goes with the platform. However, the market and the software that has been developed from the beginning for the mobile user and not the desk-bound user is significantly smaller in comparison. And a significant amount of funding, the majority of funding that goes towards training software development, goes towards software that is supposed to be used primarily on a desktop or a laptop computer. So there's definitely this gap in the market, and even in the awareness of companies that there are other options out there aside from the traditional LMS, is one of the things that I've come across. Companies will come to TalentCards and they don't know that they need a mobile solution because they don't know what a mobile solution is. They don't know that such a thing exists. What they know is that the traditional LMS doesn't work for them. They're not seeing the success and the results that they would like to be seeing with it, and they want to try something new.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what do you think is the common misconception when those people start and look for an LMS and purchase any system? So where do they go wrong?
So we see this a lot, actually. I think that the common misconception is that an LMS will work equally well for all the different types of employees that a particular company employs. And LMSs, of course, work fantastically for employees who come into the office or even work remotely from their laptops. They've got access to their courses online. They've got videos, interactive learning, blended learning, instructor-led learning. All of these things work really well for the desk-bound employee who has access to these things from their laptop. But for the mobile employee, for the deskless employee, these systems don't perform equally as well. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them is accessibility. If I don't carry my laptop around with me all day long, it's not convenient for me to sit down on my phone and have this PDF and I have to zoom in, or some file formats are not even compatible on the mobile app and that sort of thing. And then the other one is time. So when you are an office employee, it's not uncommon that, you've slated an hour in your calendar for an hour's worth of training or upskilling to learn a new skill. But when you are, a nurse or a manufacturer worker or a construction worker or something like this, you're not going to sit down for an hour and do an hour of training, once a week. That's just not a reasonable expectation. So this is the assumption that gets proven incorrect, that a learning management system will work equally well for all types of employees. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think what you're talking about when we're thinking about the deskless employees as well, I mean, you were talking about time, and they can't make an hour somewhere in between and do training. So we really need to look at more micro-learning units that can be easily accessible to them wherever they are.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And that's one of the cruxes of TalentCards, is that not having to deliver a super lengthy course that takes an hour or more to complete, or necessarily having to join at a specific time an instructor-led seminar or meeting or something like this. Instead, TalentCards delivers short, concise, to the point micro-learning courses that give people access to the information that they need at exactly the moment they need it, in an efficient amount of time, so that they can get that info and then get back to work. And of course, the accessibility, the fact that you have that in your pocket and you can just carry it around with you, you don't need to carry around a laptop or a huge training manual or something like this, is the thing that makes training convenient and therefore more effective for these employees. They're much more likely to reach for it. They're much more likely to practice it. They're much more likely to remember and use it in their day-to-day jobs. And that overall has an impact on their productivity and on the bottom line.
Now, I'm getting really curious here, and I don't know if I can put you on the spot, but can you show us an example of what this looks like?
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely show you. Give me 1 sec so I can share my screen. So we've talked a lot about how TalentCards is a mobile-first platform. But that being said, it doesn't mean that it doesn't also work on your desktop, and that's how I can actually, show you a little preview today. But, let's pretend that you are that manufacturing, construction, nurse, retail, salesperson, whatever the case, whatever type of employee you are, and you downloaded TalentCards on your phone, and you opened up the app, and then you had some training material in front of you. This is exactly, what it would look like for you. And in TalentCards, you actually have what we call card sets. And card sets are exactly what you would expect them to be, kind of like how when you were in school and you had different flashcards to help you learn different concepts. We've taken that same exact concept and just put it on your phone and made it digital and easy to access. So if we just take even a simple topic like avoiding hazards in the workplace and keeping a safe and sustainable workplace, here we've got some cards and some text working together to just really elegantly and quickly deliver the information to employees that they need to have. It's non-intrusive, doesn't interrupt your workday. You can even just swipe through your cards on your, coffee break or on the morning commute if you're on the subway or something like this, and then get back to work when you're done with your card set. So it's just this simple, easy to access and pleasant to use environment that employees have in their pockets at any time.
Now, I'm curious with something like this, how do you get so from an administrator perspective, so you now need to have all your staff need to look at this card set, and you need to check somehow that they not just flip through it, but they actually really understood the concepts and they're acting on that. How does TalentCards support that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in addition to, adding cards to your learners, card sets for them to review, you can add other elements as well. So you can actually attach video files or audio files that are engaging for the learner. And a lot of our customers get a lot of use out of this. So maybe they have to explain how to install a particular machine or operate a machine or do a particular process. You can upload a video to your card, have the learner watch it, and they go through. And then, of course, at the end of this, there's a way to evaluate how well the learner has memorized or mastered the material that you presented to them by adding a quiz at the end. And of course, all the normal things that you'd expect people to do, like enforcing a minimum pass score, having these card sets and these quizzes reset on a regular basis so that the person has to go back and review them again. And as an administrator, you can check and see how many minutes did my employees spend in this particular card set. So if they spent like 5 seconds and just swiped through the cards, very quickly, you would know that, and you can reset their progress, send them a push notification to remind them to do it again, assign them a quiz to see if they pass, given a minimum pass score, and that sort of thing.
Very interesting. Yeah, a very different way of delivering learning over the traditional learning management system. So what do you think for an organization that's listening maybe to this interview, or realized that things aren't working the way they want them? What's the indicators that they could recognize that maybe they need to switch from a traditional LMS to a mobile first platform, or they might need to consider to adding it to their portfolio?
Yeah, that's a good question. So of course, right off the bat, if your company is one that employs Deskless employees, then hands down, you should consider a mobile application for all the reasons that we've already mentioned, that accessibility, the ease of use, the microlearning elements. But some of the ways that you can actually identify if a mobile platform is something that you should be considering is that, let's say you do have an LMS or a traditional, training platform inside of your company. If you find that once people complete their courses for the first time, they never ever log back in and don't go back to reference or review that material, then perhaps considering a mobile solution to pair with that learning management system is a way that you can engage your employees in their training on a regular basis. It's much easier to get somebody to open up an app on their phone and review their content a little bit than it is to say, okay, sit down and do this whole course again, from beginning to end, during your workday or something like this. So I think that if you find that people are not engaging with your training at the level that you want them to, or they complete it and they just never go back to it again, then increasing the accessibility and making it really a pleasure to complete and a pleasure to go back and want to learn more information, a mobile solution might be the way that work for you.
And I think we've already kind of really honed in on the ideal user being an organization that has deskless workers for once. Then with regards to the workers themselves, I'm assuming they need to have access to a smartphone to access TalentCards. Is that right?
Yes. So you do download the TalentCards app onto your phone, and that's how you have access to your courses and your card sets. But something worth mentioning here is that you don't have to have access to the internet. So one of the big perks of TalentCards and one of the features that our customers really appreciate is that their employees can actually download their content for offline viewing. So if your employees are off working in a remote location where they're very far out of, internet range, or, don't want to have to use their own cellular data to be able to access their material, they have this option to download their content, while they're connected to Wi-Fi, either at home or a central company location, and then have access to that training material in the field at the moment that they need it.
Oh, that's good to know. And does it work on tablets or other devices? I think that would probably be a good qualifier.
Yeah, absolutely. So same process. If you want to use TalentCards from your tablet, you just open up, the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, whatever you have, download the TalentCards app, and all of your cards and your courses are right there for you. And then if for some reason you do want to use TalentCards from your desktop, that's also an option. You can use what we call the web app version, of the app, and actually complete your courses and your card sets from your browser.
This may be particularly useful. I'm thinking about a client of mine that we're working with, and they have a lot of staff in a warehouse, and I'm assuming those warehouse staff aren't necessarily running around with a smartphone. And if it is, then it's their personal phone that they might not want to use for work. And additionally, there may be restrictions of using phones in the workplace as well. So for those kind of organizations, knowing that they probably have a workstation somewhere that is a central workstation everybody gets access to, and this is where they could have TalentCards as well. Now, you talked about pairing TalentCards with another system. So what does an organization need to consider when they want to do that?
So TalentCards definitely does stand on its own as a training system if you want it to, and that does work for companies whose employees are largely deskless or mobile. But we have also seen a lot of success with companies actually pairing their existing LMSs with TalentCards. So what they would do is they would deliver, let's say, the full version of a course on their company's LMS with all of the PDFs, documents, instructor-led trainings, videos, and that sort of thing. They deliver the full version of the course on the LMS, and then they create a condensed micro-learning version of that course on TalentCards. And the purpose of that is so that TalentCards serves as a reinforcement tool. So your employees have spent the time to complete those training courses, but people forget things. And if that employee never goes back to that training course to review it, then they're likely going to forget a significant amount of the information that was presented to them and then not apply it in their jobs. So TalentCards serves the purpose of reinforcing this information because you have it available for you on the app in this nice, pleasant environment that's user-friendly and quick to complete. And then you review that information on a regular basis so that it actually sticks in your memory and helps you overall in your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that repetition is really important. Even when we sometimes hear the same thing twice, we're like, oh my God, I didn't pick up on this and I didn't pick up on that. So having that repetition really important. Now, what pricing models do you offer to your clients for TalentCards?
So basically, we've kept our pricing really sweet and simple. There are two plans that you can choose from, standard or premium. And the difference between these two plans are just some of the different features that you get access to. And the cost of a standard plan is $1 per user per month. And the cost of a premium plan is $1.50 per user per month. And of course, we give people the option if they want to be on annual billing, then they automatically get 20% off, regardless of which plan they've chosen.
Oh, that really sounds simple. And are you, when you're saying a user, you're talking about active users who are logging into their platform? Is that what you use as a user?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And this makes a difference to companies in particular industries, things like hospitality, tourism, and that sort of thing, because you are billed based on your active users, exactly what you said. So users that are active inside of the app and log in and have access to their card sets. So if you need to deactivate your users, then you essentially free up a seat, in your plan, and you can fill that seat, with somebody else as needed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think one important part as well is to understand how you actually implement a system like TalentCards. I mean, clearly the materials have to be created specifically for it. Tell us a little bit more about that implementation process for TalentCard. How long does it typically take, and what difficulties or challenges do companies need to be able to face?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So the implementation is very easy in terms of time and effort that's required. So what I mean by that is we've spoken a lot about the learner perspective and the end user perspective, and not so much about the administrator perspective. So what I want to say here is that what happens is the administrator will actually create these card sets, that I showed you before from their laptop or desktop computer, and people will spend anywhere from just a couple of hours to, get some card sets off the ground and push them out to their people right away, or maybe a few more days or weeks really compiling a full knowledge base, of card sets. And then once they've done that and they've created their card sets and done some basic functionality to set up their portal the way that they want to have it structured, then they just send out either an email or a text message invite to their employees, which contains a link prompting them to download the TalentCards app from the App Store. So from the learner side, once you actually just click on that link and download the app, all you have to do is log in. And in a matter of minutes, you have access to all of the material that the administrator of your portal has created for you. So the actual adoption time is very minimal. And the part that, takes time and effort is, for the administrator of the portal to create that content in a way that's meaningful and impactful. So that's what I would say about that. I think that particularly people who come from having an LMS, where perhaps they were used to taking their PDFs and their Word documents and all their different material and kind of just uploading it into the LMS and having it ready to go. We have not taken this approach with TalentCards because we want people to be mindful about how they create those courses to increase the likelihood that their employees will adopt that content and will actually want to engage with it, and that it creates the experience that they want it to create.
And I can see that the end user application is very simple. I can totally see that. Now, for the administrator, and I think that might be useful for our listeners as well to understand, do they work with templates? Is there an image database in there that they can utilize to get them started quickly so that they can get some content out, get users on the platform as they are continuing to create content?
Yeah, absolutely. So creating that content in TalentCards can take as little or as long as you want it to. So essentially, you just choose what kind of card set do you want to create. So single-sided with just content on the front, or double-sided with content, on the front and the back, and you can get started. So we do have, an image base where you can pull, icons and images from. You type your text on your cards, change the background colors, change the font, do all that sort of thing. And one of my favorites and the features that I think makes creating beautiful cards quickly, really easily, is being able to take images that you have saved on your computer and just dragging and dropping them into the card builder. So if you've got, images that you want to include in your training materials, you just drag and drop them. The platform will actually cut them into different cards for you, add your text, and you're ready to go.
Sounds interesting. And sounds like, something that we recognize now in web-based applications for image creation. If I'm thinking about Canva, etc., where you're just dragging and dropping things in and combining it, you do almost like a desktop publishing directly into your end materials without needing to learn SCORM or any of those wonderful things. So sounds like a great project, actually.
Yeah, we have found that a lot of people enjoy the simplicity of, building cards, and they don't need to have bells and whistles and crazy, SCORM files or animations or things like that. They like the fact that they can just log in, add their text, add their images, diagrams, charts, whatever information that they need to pass on to their learners, and then just push that content out with a click of a button. And suddenly I've got a notification on my phone that I've got a new card set for me to view.
Yes, and I do also think that there's a word of caution, and I think we discussed this before, is you need to know what you're training people on and how to build it out so that it actually becomes a consumable content. The simplicity is great when you know how you build training, and yet that's obviously something that we would want people to really have some good knowledge about. How do you build out training in the first case so that you can then build it out in these small micro learning pieces that people can learn on the job at the time that they need it. And not to forget the ability to upload videos, I think, is really important as well. So I don't want to I want to make sure that we bring that back to the surface here. So what is one thing that you wish all clients knew before they came to you?
I think I would say that I wish all clients knew that there is more than just the traditional learning management system out there, that you have other options that are tailored to work for different types of workforces, and that you don't have to stick with a one-size-fits-all platform.
Yeah, and I hope that this interview has added to that, creating that knowledge and creating that awareness. I am thrilled. I was not aware about TalentCards until just not too long ago when we did our interview with Talent LMS. And I really thought this is a great platform that we should look into, specialized for the deskless worker. Sounds like it's super easy to implement from an administrative perspective, and particularly from a learner perspective. And removing those hurdles is so key to get adaptation for the system. Athena, I am so grateful for you and for your time, and thank you for sharing your information about TalentCards with us today.
Thank you so much, Petra. It was great to be here.
Okay, bye-bye.